Peace. Okay, let's see. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Any questions? Last week I was here, but I didn't stream. Last week I addressed a lot of issues, controversial issues, personal issues that mix in with the controversial issues, and a very intense, very intense um, commentary, very intense commentary about how I think that we all need to conduct ourselves. I said we, that's me too. That we need to build going forward. You know, if we're going to say that we're more than just people that have knowledge of self, but um, you know, some type of family, right? So yeah, that was the build. So that's why I didn't stream last week. If anybody has any questions, you let me know. I like to start out with the questions, the builds. Now, the things I discussed in that, I only let Inf Mega, the God Allah Infinite of Allah School in Mecca page, record them. And so he could put that up at his own discretion when he was ready. Because we both had things to say. And a discourse that was very important. We talked about everything about the name of this nation, power refinement, a definitive discussion, and how to move forward, though, accepting that people from different lineages, different areas, as in Mecca, Medina, right? Firstborn prince or Sahim, whatever the lineage or the place. That there must be some kind of accord, and the one accord was going to be respectability, um, you know, um, no disrespect, no um, passive aggressive stuff, any of that. And I got very particular. You know what I mean? So if you think I got trolls now, we'll see when that comes out. All right. Peace to God, original man author. Peace, God. But last week, just as this week, kind of, although I was definitive in social media where these attacks are, I had noted that it just feels like people don't really understand how it could feel like being attacked at all angles at all times. You know what I mean? People don't understand that when you build, you do get attacked by any and everyone. You know what I'm saying? Whatever people think they could criticize, they will. He's wearing too much polo. He's with low lives. He uses refinement. He says 5% nation of gods and earth. Whatever it is, too orthodox. You know what I'm saying? So all of these things are things to deal with. You know, but original man, you said, can I build on the 23 scientists? I want to go back into the history, writing your history in advance and a knowledge degree in a 1 to 40. Writing your history in advance means, and a year to every mile just means that when you think about what you will do, you accommodate for time and space, right? Time and the exact spaces. If you can measure the exact time along with the exact spaces of what must be done, this is a mastery of writing a history. 23 scientists are said to do this. I don't deal with this 23 scientists. Those are certain people that were on the mountaintops, but the fluctuating rotation of those best knowers in all fields, in all institutions. See, the thing is that in society, any society that's made is built up of institutions. We could look at these institutions: education, military, right? All these things. How to protect the outside. We don't have to call them military. We don't have to call them police. How to protect the inside. All of these things that go around. Family unit, food, health, agriculture. All of these institutions are interlocking. And there are always certain people that have the goodwill or the lack of goodwill for that society, but also have the control. They sustain it. Today's time, they have these things by any means necessary and for their own blood-sucking purposes. But in the framework of the 23 scientists, it is those individuals that have an understanding of the institutions and how they overlap and how society works and how they must flourish, though, in certain ways. The more you know about these interlocking ways of institutions in a society that blend together as one, the more that you have the likelihood that you can control and understand what will happen, what must happen, right? So to me, the 23 scientists are those learned men that are able to make these decisions because they understand the time, right? That's it. I don't look at it. I don't look at it too complex. I don't look at it crazy. I certainly don't look at it like these special big G versus little G gods on the mountaintop. As society develops and the levels of righteousness become more wary, areas of righteousness don't become black and white anymore. They become more gray. Discord amongst the original people, separation that Yaqub utilized, but did not create. Yaqub, understanding the principles of unlike, attract, and like, repel, did not create the discord among the original. He manipulated it, farming it to a select peak in the grafting process, and made it unlike people that were all about that. That was prepared to live in this type of world of separation. This is why I'm very vehement, yes, in things like the FBA and people that are divisive, because that's not what this station is. That's not what we work to do, right? That's peace, God. And on that tip, though, obviously I'm segueing to a personal thing. It's obviously more something you would hear me comment about on social media, things like that. Hip hop is my career. It's a major part of my life. But I was also reading, and I started reading it because my brother told me to watch the movie. He would like to hear my thoughts, and That's always a privilege. So I started to read Isabel Wilkerson's The Caste. I forgot the whole title. I've been reading it. I just read about 80 pages of it today, and I forget the title. I'll plug it up now. Caste, the Origins of Our Discontents. Now, what's interesting is that she talks about things that really do make sense. You know what I mean? I do see it. This idea of America being a caste system for the Black American. I'm less than 100 pages away from finishing. But what I also find troubling is that a caste system, if she's comparing it to a caste system, and again, the less than a third, much less than a third, might address these better than they were poorly done before. But in the book, she certainly shows how this certainly is a caste system and how it's protected, social systems, all of that. It relies heavily on anecdotal evidence, situations, select instances. But at the same time, though, these select instances are important, though, because in other places, they may never happen this way. But for a caste system to be truly a caste system, as in India and other places, you have to describe all of the levels, not just the bottom and the top. She describes the middle levels, right, very poorly. In this type of caste system of the United States, though, a person like myself, lighter skinned, Puerto Rican, coming from the island, but not Black American, I would be somewhere in the lower caste, but not quite in the lower caste. So she makes a certain point about how immigrants, and even though technically, let's just take that out of the, let's personalize it, even though it's not as personal, because technically, because the U.S. owns Puerto Rico and gave everyone on the island citizenship in 1917, I technically wouldn't be an immigrant. However, let's work with that, okay? Let's work with that. Working with that, she makes how immigrants, and the way she generalizes is very off. It makes some sense, but it is certainly not it's certainly not consistent. Everything lies much more in between. She says that immigrants would fight harder to keep their original accents, identifying markers that make them other than Black American, African American, other. Make sure you're other than. I find that to be grossly false. Not only is that not true, it's incomplete, and that's what makes it untrue. These are the problems, though. As a side note, I'm saying all this because we're supposed to be the nation. We don't deal with phenotype. We deal with the knowledge of genotype that Allah showed and proved. The black, brown, yellow. Allah was breaking the phenotype by putting value of originality, inequality to all the seeds. And I don't mean equality of just fairness, but sameness as well. To all the shades, black, brown, yellow. This is far different than the way, let's say, someone of the caste would treat Sunez, right? Someone inside would treat me better or differently than a knowledge seed. We all know this, right? But the reality is this, right? Puerto Ricans that migrated, as an example, this includes all Latinos, really. We talk about New York City, but I'm talking about New York City. 1940s, 50s, 60s, 70s. You couldn't migrate here and think you could just go right into school and just speak Spanish. You actually, Puerto Rico went through an entire colonization process to forget the language, to be other than self, to be like the supposed proper American, the white American. So I'm finding problems with Isabel Wilkerson in all of the middle. All of the top is good. All of the middle is wrong, incomplete. And it seems this way with everything. I have thought about this a lot, and it seems to me that one of the ways that when we're trying to understand different original peoples and their plight is that it's not all rosy. We're all taught to be other than the worst. The blackest of the black is on the bottom. We're taught to be other than ourselves, but that's supposed to get us around in the society that we're in, the immediate cell block area of the concrete jungle. But in the confines that we may breach, just like Isabel Wilkerson talked about, those are problematic for us too. And a lot of that, though, in the society is also only speaking about two peoples, keeping everything black and white. So it's not about we're original people. We're all black, brown. We're all original. That's with the knowledge. But if we don't start understanding the nuances that original people from different places are taught to stay away and not be like African Americans and given all the litany of stereotypes. And yet on the other contradictory and hypocritical reality, there will be the same people that acknowledge the massive racism done to them, especially at the many moments that they experience it themselves. It's a harsh reality. All right. Let me see what people have said here. King Kamon, you said, peace to divine Allah. Peace, self-magnetic. King, you said you go against the flag alone in the lessons if you condone divisiveness and devilish from the P.E.A.C.E and colorism. I don't care how long they had knowledge or respects them. Won't. Peace, God.
Peace to God. Yeah, there's a brother outside sitting there. I talked to him. He said that he was waiting on you or something, so I don't know.
Yeah, let me see, because people are waiting. I don't know why they don't come in. I don't
Right.
see anybody else.
All right, I'll be right back, God. I gotta use the bathroom.
Yeah, I've been here a minute.
When I pulled up, it was like, yeah, here, come on.
You came inside?
I came in, it was golf back here. Sean was outside with help with our Henny.
Oh.
I was like, this is Sunez Allah, I'm not sure you get but now he's having class. I was like, if I forgot him off a little by him, send him on. You might show up. They showing the gram, they don't make these classes, they go to late, I'm at the school. I didn't see what was.
Yeah. Everything's peace, God. Everything's peace, God. Alright. Self-I build peace to the God. Again, anybody have anything that they want to ask and stuff, let me know. I am going to be here until the born hour. All right. I also have a student here who's going to show and prove his 1 to 10. So y'all could see it. If y'all have questions or something like that, you can relay them though, just to inspect, if you're not clear about something, you know what I mean? If I find him worthy, I'll throw him at him. But it's important to see how this type of testing goes. King Kamon knows how it goes. I took him through it.
Looks a little different, huh?
Yeah, a lot of changes since last time you've been here.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, God, yo. I did, man. Yo, let it be known. I had King on the hot seat for 3 hours. You know what I mean? 3 hours. And passed, man. Passed. Right and exact. True self peace. I wasn't streaming last week. I was but I was here. Okay. Anybody missed anything that they want to ask, let me know. Let me know. I will build.
I need a key. Key? I don't have any keys. Yo, God. There's a brother here asking for a key.
Yeah, I don't know where the God is that has that. He's talking about the key out front. I don't know.
The computer room looks beautiful, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know where everybody is. I don't know. Dayson was here. I don't know where he went. Yo, God, Dayson is still around?
He was. No, I just don't know where he went. He back in the yard, in the back of the
Oh, okay, yeah. There's a lot of gods out in the yard. Yeah, God. So, Crown, man. You ready, God?
I'm ready, yo.
Yeah, let's do it.
Quick question. I have a question.
Go, God.
I drink a lot of water earlier on. If I had to use the bathroom in between, could I go in between degrees?
Of course, yeah, God. Yeah, this
I
ain't.
have a sip of water too as I'm speaking here and there.
Yeah, God.
All right. I didn't want to fuck up. You know what I mean?
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so quote it all, and then we'll build on it, right?
Okay.
Student enrollment.
All right. Start now?
Please do, God. Yeah.
Word.
Let's
All
do
right.
it.
Who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, and God of the universe. Original means the origin of. In other words, it means the start
Hold on,
of the
God, no.
foundation.
Just build on, quote the whole thing straight. Quote 1 to 10 straight.
Like the lesson?
Just quote the whole.
Who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, and God of the universe. Who is the colored man? The colored man is the Caucasian white man, Yakub's grafted devil of the planet Earth. What is the population of the original nation here in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet Earth? Here in the wilderness of North America, there are 17 million, with the 2 million Indians making it a total of 19 million. And all over the planet Earth, there are 4,400,000,000. What is the population of the colored man here in the wilderness of North America and all over the planet Earth? Here in the wilderness of North America, there are 103 million, and all over the planet Earth, there are 400 million. What is the exact area in square miles of the planet Earth? 196,940,000 square miles. How much useful land is used every day by the total population of the planet Earth? 29 million square miles. How much is used by the original man? 23 million square miles. How much is used by the colored man? 6 million square miles. What is the said birth record of Islam? Islam has no said birth record. It has no beginning nor ending. It is older than the sun, moon, and stars. What is the said birth record of nations other than Islam? Buddhism is 35,000 years old. Christianity is 551 years old.
That's peace. That's peace. All right, when you're ready, God, how do you see the knowledge degree at? How do you see the knowledge degree? How do you show and prove it for yourself?
Okay. So original means the origin of.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, original means the start or foundation of something, or the first. So the word man means human being, but if we look at the etymology of the word man, we see a deeper meaning than just human. Man is a word that comes from the English language, and English is a part of the Indo-European language family, which means that English, along with other European languages, have an Asiatic root connected to the languages in India and Iran, hence the Indo part and the Indo-European. So if we look at a language like Sanskrit, which is considered as one of the oldest languages in the Indian subcontinent, we look at the word man. Man is usually connected to mind. Man means mind. In other Indian languages, man also means to think or to cognate or thinking creature. So man, from the perspective of the Indo languages, is really referencing the mind or the consciousness. So original man really means original mind. So it's the first mind or foundational mind, or the mind that existed before the grafting process. When we see terms like Asiatic black man, these terminologies tell us something about the people that hold the original mind, but also it's a description of what the original mind can do, its ability. So Asiatic means of Asia. The reason why Asiatic is there is because it represents the variety of peoples that hold the original mind. Asia was at one point, that was the name of our planet. But Asia as a continent is filled with all different types of original people, with all different shades of black, brown, yellow, and variations in between those shades with different phenotypical types. So Asiatic is referencing the variety of original peoples that hold the original mind. But Asiatic may also reference our perspective. Asiatic, meaning of the East, may also reference the Eastern perspective that we see in a lot of the religions and philosophies of the East. So it's really not only just the peoples that hold the mind, but also the way the mind thinks in an Asiatic sense. Mm-hmm. And Asiatic philosophies often allude to the concept and idea that the mind is the foundation of all things, but also to the fact that man is God. Asiatic, we break down the word into two words, Asiatic. It represents the mind and the body being one. The body and the original mind being one. Black man, we might look at that terminology and think it's specifically talking about one type of people, but black man really is referring to the mind, black mind. As previously stated with Asiatic, Asiatic references a variety of original peoples. So black isn't really just the skin color, but really it's also the ability of the mind, because black is a color that absorbs light properly, and black is a color where all colors come from it. So it's a mind that can absorb light properly and bring all different types of things into existence. So the original man or original mind is the mind with an Eastern perspective that is held by a variety of peoples that can absorb light properly and bring all things into existence. And then the second half of the answer is really giving us more of a definition of who and what the original mind is. So the maker, the owner, cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization, God of the universe. Maker is a creator. A creator is one who brings something into existence. An owner is one who owns their creation. Once you create something, you rightfully own it. Cream of the planet Earth refers to us being the best part of the planet Earth, because cream, in a lot of languages and a lot of literary pieces, cream is like a metaphor for the best part, the creme de la creme. But cream of the planet Earth may also refer to us as men in our role in reproduction. So when we're with a woman and we're building a family, we give her the cream. That's the foundational part of bearing a child. So cream of the planet Earth may also refer to our part in creating life with a woman. Cream of the planet Earth, father of civilization. A father is a male parent, but a father is also a term of dominance or male dominance. A father also represents a creator. So it's a male creator with dominance. Father of civilization means we brought civilization into existence. A civilization is a society that is civil. And to be civil means to act in a way that is right and exact. So we are the ones that brought civilization into existence. And God of the universe is self-explanatory. God is the supreme being. Supreme means dominant. Being means one who exists. So essentially, in the universe is everything in existence. So the original mind, the mind with an Eastern perspective that can absorb light properly, and bring all things into existence, is God. So essentially, that is what this degree is showing and teaching. Now, the mathematics that links with this degree is knowledge. Knowledge is the foundation of all things, and knowing is the start to whatever you pursue in life. Before you do something and you act on something, you must first know. So knowledge is the foundation. It all starts out in the mind. The reason why the math links with this degree is because the original mind, or God, is the foundation of everything in existence. So the same way knowledge is the foundation, God is the foundation, because it all starts out in the mind. Now, the way I see myself in this degree is through the simple fact that, though I am very light-skinned, I am an original man, but I do come from a half-original background. Being ethnically mixed, coming from the Mediterranean regions of Europe, specifically Sicily and southern Italy, it's hard to deny the original roots alongside the grafted roots. Because the fact of the matter is that there are a variety of original peoples that existed during the foundation in the Italian peninsula, but also throughout the time the grafted type started to come into the rest of Europe. If you were to look at Italy, the peninsula itself, where my people come from a foundational perspective, it's filled with original peoples. You have the Western hunter-gatherers in Europe, original peoples that existed before the creation of the white man, or the white man coming into Europe. You also have the first farmers, the Middle Eastern farmers that came from...
Peace.
No, I don't want to say. I just want to.
Okay,
All right.
cool. Pardon yourself, God. You also have the early European
Hold on.
farmers.
I don't know who you are. You either coming in my classroom or you're out of the classroom.
Okay, I came from Italy and I go walking around and I know what is this and I want to show what is in it. I don't want to
If you want to come in, sit. You don't have to stay outside.
I just want to see the place.
Okay.
Sorry for this.
No, it's peace. I always want to know who's in the classroom. That could we...
No, I'm not from class.
Everyone is welcome. Everyone is welcome.
Thank you.
All right? Peace.
So the first farmers, early European farmers, Anatolian farmers, were a farming population that came from the Levant and Turkey. They went into all of southern Europe and into Europe and brought agriculture there. So prior to the white man's existence, you had two populations of original people existing in Europe, especially within the peninsulas of Europe, which are really at the cusp of northern Africa and the Middle East. Besides those two populations, you also have the Afro-Asiatic types that were in close proximity to the southern peninsulas, like the Balkan Peninsula, the Italic Peninsula, and the Iberian Peninsula. So these are the foundational aspects of our originality. Once the white man came into existence, it began to spread into Europe and it began to mix in with the hunter-gatherers and the first farmers that began to whiten up the population in the north. That's where white people truthfully are and where they come from. But those who descended in the south were constantly mixing in with original peoples because of its proximity to North Africa and the Middle East. It's impossible for them to become white and homogenous. Pardon so. It's impossible for them to become white and homogenous because of all the mixing in with the other original peoples that were there. Prior to the Roman Empire, which really, if you study the knowledge and you really dig deep into it, it's really a half original empire. You have a variety of original peoples that were foundational pieces. Pardon so. And
Keep on going.
there were foundational pieces before Rome became a civilization. You have the Etruscan civilization, which started 800 years prior to Rome. I believe it's around 800, pardon so. But they originate from Turkey, from Anatolia, another part in the Middle East. Because of a famine, they began to spread into Europe, specifically in central and southern Italy, and they built a civilization there. South of that civilization, you also have the Phoenicians on the island of Sicily, who were overtly an original people. They came from Levant, specifically modern-day Lebanon, and then they spread into Africa, and they began to colonize different parts of the Mediterranean. So these are Afro-Asiatic types taking in a variety of other black original peoples in Africa, incorporating that into their empire, and it was specifically on the island of Sicily. Another group of people that could be argued as original, or really half original, is the Greeks. The Greeks in the southern Italian peninsula, or Magna Graecia, at the time were dealing with a lot of original sciences, with the Egyptians, with the Persians, with the variety of peoples in the Anatolian area, which is Turkey. So they themselves at the time most likely were mixed. So you have the Greek, the Etruscan, and the Phoenician, which is all two original, one half original, and then amongst that you have the devils who are coming down and descending into the peninsulas. Then Rome begins. All these groups, Greek, Phoenician, and Etruscan, contributed to Roman civilization as a whole. It's the foundation of Rome. Now, while many may perceive Rome as white or Caucasian, the fact of the matter is that during Rome, there were a variety of encounters with original peoples. At one point, we look at someone like Hannibal, and Hannibal had a lot to do with the mixing that took place in Rome. He's not the only individual that caused the mixing to take place. Hannibal invaded Rome through the Alps, went down and descended into southern Italy and settled amongst the southerners. He was there for about 19, 20 years with 90,000 African soldiers. That alone shows and proves that there was a lot of mixing taking place. And from some personal family history that I found out through doing research and studying, I ended up finding out that one of my family's towns in Calabria, which is the region closest to Sicily, the tribes people there, the Bruti, who were most likely half original, sided with the Carthaginians over the Romans. There were a lot of Italic tribes who were being colonized by the Romans, and they themselves didn't like that. So many people in the south did side with Hannibal's tribe, and specifically people from my own lineage sided with the Carthaginians. But besides that, besides Carthage, you also have all the race mixing that took place during the Roman Empire, because Rome at its height included parts of northern Africa, Egypt, and the Middle East. And in the Middle East, it was specifically the Levant, parts of Arabia, Mesopotamia, and Turkey. So because of its proximity, its territory, there were a variety of original peoples that became Romanized and traveled into the Italian peninsula because Rome, the capital, was there. People went where the capital was at because there was more business there. There was more to do there. So there was a lot of cross-pollination between cultures and peoples, creating a half-original people. If we were to look at Marcus Vitruvius Polio's De Architectura, Book 6, Chapter 1, which is really an ethnography, he describes the Romans as being an in-between people between the Germanic tribes who were white north of them and the black Africans south of them in northern Africa. He describes the Germanic tribes as not being cunning or smart, but being warlike, and being like that because they're living in a colder climate. The Africans south of them, they describe them as not being warlike and more cowardly, but being cunning and smart. So because of the proximity, this author saw themselves as being an in-between people, having traits from both original and grafted, having brown features, darker, curlier hair, but not being either or, being right in the middle, which is as half original as it gets. So this means that their own perspective was really coming from a half original perspective. Now, during the Roman Empire, all this mixing took place, but then it fell. And specifically, the western half fell due to the Germanic tribes. But the eastern half, the Byzantine Empire, still stood strong for a time being, which still included the eastern half's territories in northern Africa and the Middle East. So then you have the Byzantine, who had a stronghold in the south of Italy. So while the northern Italians and central Italians were becoming more white because of the Germanic tribes, the south still had that half original trajectory because of the Byzantine. But then you have the Moors, and the Moors began to take territory from the Byzantines due to the spread of Islam. When they began to go into Spain and Portugal, or the Iberian Peninsula, they also went into the island of Sicily, and Sicily became a stronghold for the Moors. But then they started going into the peninsula. Parts like Calabria, regions like Calabria and Puglia, had a lot of Moorish strongholds as well, but the entire southern peninsula can never be fully conquered because there was a war between the Moors, the Byzantine, and the Germanic tribes. But because of all these people, there was a lot of mixing that took place, which made half original people. And then you have the Normans. Normans come from northern France, Normandy. They conquered the Moors, they conquered the Byzantine, but they preserved the Moorish and Byzantine culture that existed in the south of Italy, and they appreciated it. And also during this conquering, they also conquered parts of Tunisia and North Africa. So for a time being, the south of Italy and Sicily and Tunisia and North Africa were at one point a country together, a kingdom together. So there's a lot of mixing that took place. But the Normans are really what set the southern Italians and Sicilians onto the half original trajectory, because unlike the Germanic whites, they preserved the original culture. They preserved it. They didn't exploit it, but they preserved it because they appreciated it. And mixing took place. Obviously, people were forced to become Christian, who were Muslim or who were practicing Islam to some degree or another, but this continued the half original trajectory until Spain and France came in control of southern Italy and Sicily, which was always associated with itself as the kingdom of the two Sicilies, the kingdom of Naples, or the kingdom of Sicily. So because of Spain being a half original nation, because of the Moors, more half original stuff was going on until the unification of Italy in the 1860s. This is when all the northern countries and states unified as one country and invaded the south. And at that point, the southerners became colonial peasants in a way, which led most of them to migrate and immigrate into the West, into North America, into Latin America, into Australia, and going into different parts where they weren't as oppressed. But because of all the peoples I just listed, all these people were left out of the grafted process, but they mixed in with the grafted, which is what made them half original. But being half original means you are original, but you're just being half-assed. I'm sorry for cursing, but it just means that you're not really living up to who you truthfully are. You're aligning with them more than you should be aligning with your own. So it doesn't mean that you're white or Caucasian or grafted. It just means that you're falling away from who you really are. With that being said, I am an original person. And it's hard for me to deny that when I have a father that I've seen every day of my life with brown skin who comes from Calabria and Sicily and, took care of me. And it's hard to deny that when I have people in my family that are obviously original and Asiatic from a face value standpoint. I might have fair skin, but I am original. And what really means to be original isn't just the bloodline or your ethnicity, but your mind state. Original man means original mind. Those who hold the first mind, the foundational mind. And I have the foundational mind because I'm living in a way that is upright and right and exact. And that's how I see myself in this degree. Peace.
That's peace, God.
Pardon myself for going on.
Let's do something. Go to the front. I don't have these buttons. You are new. I've never seen you in here. So who are you?
My name is Mikey.
Mikey.
Yes, sir. You want to say?
All right, peace. I'm Sunez Allah. Okay? How did you hear about this class?
Well, Claudio told me if I want to be informed.
Okay. All right, Claudio. All
Pardon
right.
yourself, brothers.
Peace, God.
Peace.
Peace and Christ. Peace, Mikey.
Right now, to make it simpler, Mikey, we here teach a certain set of lessons. We teach supreme mathematics, supreme alphabet, 120 lessons. 120 lessons is broken up in many parts. As a person memorizes each part, they go up there and they have to show and prove it. They have to quote it, and then they have to show and prove that they understand it to a certain degree to be able to continue. None of this means nothing to you. All right? None of this is something that is factual to you, and anything I said and nothing that you heard here is true. Everything is true until you study it for yourself and decide to. Right? But you walked into the middle of something, so now you got to see the end of it. Okay? And then we'll double back around on and share stuff that is relevant to you immediately. All right? Other questions that are important in this 1 and 10. We're known as people of color. But in that second degree, it says the colored man is a Caucasian white man. Why? Why does it say that?
So colored at face value really isn't what it seems. At face value, many people are going to hear the term colored and think of the terminology that was used towards African Americans and other non-white peoples prior to the Civil Rights Movement. It was obviously used in a very disparaging way. When we refer to colored, we're really talking about those who became other than self. Because colored man really is referring to the mind, because the word man means mind. Man is a word in the English language, but is connected to Sanskrit and the languages in India and Iran, because English, along with other European languages, are part of the Indo-European language family. So whenever you're looking at English or Spanish or Greek, they're all connected to the languages in India. So in Sanskrit, the word man means mind. If you take a word like mantra, man in mantra means mind, whereas tra, the T-R-A, means to release the mind. So colored man really is colored mind, the mind that became other than self or altered. If you take a piece of paper and you color over it, it's no longer in its original state of being. It is now altered. So colored is almost synonymous with altered. So colored man is referring to the altered mind, or the mind that became other than self. Caucasian white man is very similar in the sense of Asiatic black man, because Caucasian white man really is describing the inability of the mind and the state of mind that we're talking about. So Caucasian specifically may reference where this population of people was sent to after they were committing devilish among the original populations. They were sent to the Caucasus Mountains. So Caucasian references the Caucasus region in Asia, which is why it's Caucasus Asian. So these people were sent to the Caucasus Mountains. They were there for a time being. But Caucasian may also reference the state of mind that they have. The Caucasus Mountains isn't a place where civilization can really be built. It's a place that isn't really suitable for living. So you have a low standard of living. So this low standard of living may be a description of the mind, a low standard of the mind. So white man means mind, it's the white mind. Black is a color that absorbs light properly and brings things into existence, whereas white reflects light. So it is not as absorbent as the black mind. So the colored mind or the altered mind is the Caucasian or mind with lower standard of living that cannot absorb light properly or bring things into existence. And we get more of a definition. Yaqu's grafted devil of planet Earth. Yaqub is Jacob from the Bible. Yaqub is the Arabic name for Jacob. You look at the meaning of Yaqub's name, it tells us more about this population. Before I get into that, Yaqub is described as the father of the white man. If you look in the book of Genesis, the stories of Jacob symbolically are telling about his wrestling with the angel, which is really wrestling with the original nations, but it also talks about his experimentation and creation of the white man in a very eugenic way. But these people are described symbolically as sheep in the book of Genesis. He made a new flock, so to speak. So Yaqub is the father of the white man, but his name tells us about what this population of people would become. So Yaqub means subplanter. Subplant means to take the place of the original illegal. This terminology is often associated with lying, cheating, stealing, appropriation, and deception. So essentially, a subplanter is one who uses deception, tricks, and lies to take the place of the original. So essentially, this is what they became over the years. In the world we live in, I'm not saying all people in power are white, because anyone can be grafted, anyone can be colored, anyone can become other than self. But this population specifically, they have flipped the world upside down. And now, when the original were in power, we're no longer in power. Now we are under their control. So they supplanted us. Grafted really is referring to the process in which made them other than self, or made them colored or altered. So graft means to insert. Grafted is in the past tense, meaning something was inserted in the past. But where was it inserted and what was inserted? Everything starts off foundationally in the mind. So where was it inserted was the mind. It was inserted in the mind. And what was inserted were false ideas, false concepts, or trick knowledge. False ways of being that go against our nature was inserted into their minds, making them other than self mentally, which ultimately led to them manifesting this physically into their actions. So then they become completely something other than self, which leads them no longer to being God or the original man, but being a devil. Devil, from a religious standpoint, is a mythological being who is evil and is negative. From a biblical standpoint, the devil, or Satan, or the devils, Satan's followers, rebelled against God, were thrown out of the kingdom of heaven. The same thing can be said about the white population. They rebelled against the original way of being. They came amongst the original, caused trouble, and then got casted into the Caucasus Mountains. So the story of Satan is really symbolic to the story of the population of people known as white people, or those who eventually became known as Caucasians. They became casted out. If we look at the terminology devil, you spell it backwards, it's lived. meaning that they were once alive, but they're no longer alive, because lived is in the past tense. Being alive mentally, not physically, because when someone dies, that's it, they're dead, they can't come back from that. Lived mentally. They were once original, but then they became other than self. They are now officially mentally dead. If we look at another biblical figure that's similar to Satan, it adds on to this lived concept a little bit more. Adam in the Bible, in a lot of ways, is synonymous with Satan. Because Adam and Eve, after they rebelled against God, they got casted out of the Garden of Eden, which is heaven, paradise, or the civilizations of the planet, and were sent into the earth. So Adam and Eve were sent out, casted out, as was Satan. So they're really synonymous. But what really takes it home is looking at the etymology of the word Adam. Because Adam, from an etymology standpoint, means unregenerate man or unregenerate nature. Unregenerate, as a modern term, is filled with trick knowledge, because religious people oftentimes screw it up. To a religious person, unregenerate, that is not right. But unregenerate, we look at it from an actual scientific term. What does it really mean? Generate means to give life and to produce. Regenerate means to do so, even after coming to an end. When, we get cut or we get hurt, our skin can regenerate. Regeneration means even though something ends, it can still come back. You put the un in front of it, that essentially means it's the opposite. Man means mind. So unregenerate mind is the mind that is not living in a way that is infinite. It's living in a way that is finite. And their way of living, since it is other than self, cannot be continued or sustained. So eventually it's going to have to come to an end, which is why they're unregenerate, which is why they are lived. They're not living in a way that is infinite or constant. They're living in a way that is finite. And eventually they're going to have to end what they're doing in order to continue. So devil and lived is really talking about this population becoming other than self and not being able to fully continue as they are. They have to come back to the original eventually to be able to be what they're supposed to be or what they ought to be. So the colored man, or mind, the colored mind, was a population of original people that became other than self. They became other than self during the grafting process, where false ideas and concepts were inserted into their minds and became manifested into their actions, therefore making them into the devil. With that being said, this doesn't mean that all white people are evil or are devils, but rather their population of people became something different than what they once originally were. Because there are some white people that are righteous and are living in the way of the original. And when they come amongst us and they learn from us, they can live in the way of God or the original man or mind. But because of 6,000 years of rebellion, living in a way that is other than self, they can't really, there's a lot more that they have to do in order to become more like us again. But the fact of the matter is that if you study this population of people, when they were sent to the caves, they came out of the caves, they weren't what we see today. These people were zombie-like, animal-like, hair was falling out. They mixed in with the original populations in Europe, because there are a variety of peoples in Europe that existed before the white man existed. When you look at the Western hunter-gatherers, it's been proven through genetics that these people had brown skin, and they were from Northern Europe. They mixed in with these people. You also have the first farmers, or the early European farmers who came from Anatolia, which is in Turkey and Levant. This is the Middle East. They spread into Europe and brought agriculture, and they also mixed in with these people. So you have these people mixing in with two original populations, which is what strengthened themselves and sustained their devilishment. Because when you mix the original with devilish, you're able to use your devilishment in a way that is more effective. So they mixed in with these people and strengthened them. So they have our blood. They're not the same thing as they once were 6,000 years ago, but because they've been living in a way that is not right and exact for 6,000 years, there's more that they have to do to become more like us once again. The mathematics that links with this degree is wisdom. Wisdom is gaining knowledge through experience, but is also living your knowledge out. It's taking your knowledge and enacting it, putting action behind it. The reason why this is the wisdom degree is because in order to deal with the grafted devil, you have to be wise for multiple reasons, for 3 reasons exactly that I came up with. The first reason is to protect yourself from their devilishment, what they could do to you, you becoming a victim of their oppression. So you have to be wise when dealing with the devil. You have to be wise of what they could do to you. Number 2, you have to also be wise in making them better than what they currently are, helping them become something that they ought to be. I'm not saying fix necessarily, but help them, putting them on the track to becoming what they once were before the grafting process. To help someone who's devilish, you have to be wise And the third reason is so you don't fall into devilishment. Because in this society, it is very become a devil yourself. Because a devil isn't just a person with white skin, it's also anyone who become other than self. You can be a black person or a brown person or a yellow person. If you're living in a way that is other than self, you're living in a way that is devilish. It's not about the skin color or the phenotypical features, but rather the mind. Now, the way I see myself in this degree is to the simple fact that I have been a victim of devilishment at the hands of white people, and others as well, but mainly white people. But my people, as Italians, as Southern Italians, Sicilians and Southern Italians, have also partook in devilishment and weren't hip or wise to those that they were aligning themselves with. Now, in terms of our oppression and what we've dealt with in the Italian peninsula, being mixed, having mixed ancestry, of course, those north of you are going to treat you like crap. When unification of Italy happened, where the northern states unified into one country, invaded the south and incorporated it into their country, the southerners became peasants, and the resources were used by the north, and we became poor. We were treated as second-class citizens. And because of our black and Asiatic, really code for Middle Eastern ancestry, we were seen as being prone to crime and criminology. But any person who's placed into poverty, who's living in a way that is desperate, is going to do what they have to do to survive. You're putting them in that position. It's not solely on them. So when we commit crimes, many eugenicists in Italy, like Cesare Lombroso, argue that these people are not fully white. They have African and Middle Eastern ancestry. This is why they're criminal. This is why they're forming the La Cosa Nostras, the Gamoras, the Ndrangheta's, all in southern Italy, all the mafias you can think of. When southern Italians took matters into their own hands and were brigands, bandits, robbing the rich and giving to the poor, not only were they locked up and persecuted, but their family members were. So imagine, I break the law, I get arrested, then my mother, my father, my brothers, and my cousins, my uncles and aunts get arrested too. Cesare Lombroso, this is scratching the surface, was an individual that believed in eugenics and studying the mind in a very barbaric way. There are many southern Italians who were arrested, who were persecuted, and were sent up to his stations or labs in northern Italy and experimented on. To this day, there's a museum in northern Italy called the Cesare Lombroso Museum of Criminology, where the remains of brown-skinned southern Italians and Sicilians are on display after his experiments. Heads in jars, brains, arms, everything you can think of. And southerners in Italy to this day who have family members whose remains are there are fighting to have the remains sent to them so they can give them proper burials, because that's a part of our culture in the south of Italy and Sicily. This is only scratching the surface. The northerners in Italy refer anything below Rome belongs to Africa. So they see us as different. And when many of us start migrating up north for work, because the south is still poor and impoverished to this day, it's still at a second world position where the north is at a first world position, they don't want us up there. They treat us the same way they treat black, migrants and Middle Eastern migrants. So we were dealing with devilishment in our own home country, and then we began to immigrate into the Americas. My family immigrated from Sicily, Calabria, and Campania into North America, into the United States specifically. There is a variety of devilishment that we faced when we came here, possibly maybe even worse than what we faced in Italy. Southern Italians and Sicilians were subjected to lynchings, surveillance, forced assimilation, segregation alongside African Americans and other original peoples. And many of us were also during World War II forced into detention camps and centers. Although the Japanese definitely had it worse, we still were also put into those camps because we spoke our language and we were a specific ethnicity of people. So with this being said, this is all devilishment, but this pushed us into assimilation. Assimilation meaning we decided to try to become more white, to fit in with those who were other than self as a way to survive, which ultimately made us more like them, even though we are original. So the fact of the matter is we were pushed into assimilation. Now, can I take a sip of water, God? I'm sorry. My mouth is getting dry. Pardon so. Though that being said, we weren't hip or wise to who we were aligning with or who we were going to eventually become. And by aligning with those who are grafted other than self, you deny yourself of the best part, you being who you truthfully are deep down inside. Because even though we were half original, coming from the Italian peninsula, we still had our original culture more intact than we currently do here in North America, becoming more Anglophile, which is Germanic, which is white. Now, me from an anecdotal perspective, I dealt with plenty of white devils who, treated me horribly. I align myself more with Black and Latino because I come from North New Jersey, and that's where my family was from. When I had to move to the suburbs in Western New Jersey, because I wasn't racist, I wasn't brought up to hate Spanish or Black. A lot of white kids, oh, you're down with them? Well, now you're a Guinea. You're no longer white. What this showed me is that whiteness and race as a whole is a social construct. There's another reason why they're called the colored man, because they're the ones who divided us up into colors and ethnicities and this and that, and taught us we're all different than one another. They're not only colored because they became altered and different, but they began differentiating people, putting people into color categories. Now, the Devilishman I witnessed, is nothing compared to my Black and brown brothers and sisters, but I still saw it, and I also saw that whiteness is conditional when you're half original. Because the same way that we became white, we could have stayed true to our roots, not sold out, and been placed in some other person of color category where we were treated badly and poorly. But the fact of the matter is my people aligned themselves with devils. They assimilated out of survival, and they betrayed all original people by doing so, and in a very dishonorable way.
That's peace, God.
So the way I see myself in this degree, I just want to continue, I'm sorry, is through witnessing this, witnessing what my people did, but me being like, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do the wrong thing. I'm going to do the right thing and align with Black, brown, and yellow people because I am that. That's how I see myself in this degree. Pardon self, God, for going on again.
That certainly was roundabout. This is for the to divine Allah. This is how you would do it. When we FaceTime and we build on Supreme Math, I will show you how it's done. You know what I mean? You explain how you see it. I asked you particular questions. You don't have to have all the answers. It just has to be a developing understanding. Okay? Something that shows that you can actually use it. All right, to the one who's 7 AUR, everything that you said is garbage here. Everything that's been said in this right now with Crown Building is not only articulate, but it's shown and proven. It's absolutely shown and proven, though. And I know particularly that I went through it with Crown, with all his sources as well. All right, so you go somewhere else with that. If you're around the area, though, why don't you pop on through? It gets quiet. I don't see it. Let him know. Come on through if you have such a problem. I know these trolls that talk stuff are literally around the corner. Let's continue. Another important question. Crown, how do you see useful land? How do you see useful land as far as what do you think Elijah meant in the degree, but also how you see it?
Well, useful means that it has purpose. Something can be used or utilized for something greater than itself. So land is a part of the planet Earth that's not covered in water. So useful land are areas that we can inhabit and build civilization. I think Elijah Muhammad was specifically referring to the land that could be used for the original nation to build and to add on. But I think the way we see it, it's not only just the land that we have and we inhabit, but also the mind. Useful land, useful is referring to the best part. The best part of ourselves is the mental. So 29 million square miles out of 196,940,000 square miles is a small percent, but that's what's deep inside of us, the best part deep inside of us. So I see Elijah as referring to specifically the land that he wanted, that he was, they're still fighting for essentially. But I also see it as the best part within ourselves, a useful land within ourselves, that we can utilize to the best of our abilities.
That's peace, God. The last 2 degrees. The religions other than Islam. Why do you think they chose Buddhism and Christianity?
Okay, so Buddhism being 35,000 years old is a typo, obviously. It's not 35,000 years old. Maybe 3,500, but that wouldn't be Buddhism, because Buddhism is not 3,500 years old. So it's really referring to Hinduism. Buddhism would be a label for Hinduism because that's the trajectory and direction that Hinduism was evolving into. Because the Buddha was a Hindu. He came up in a Hindu family. Siddhartha Gautama was Hindu. He didn't like Hinduism, and he discovered what the truth, our truth, and was essentially saying there's a way to break the cycle of reincarnation. The reason why Hinduism is a nation other than Islam is because although it has a lot of truth in it, you can say the Vedas, all the scriptures they have, there's a lot of truth about the original man being God. There's also a lot of lies. Reincarnation is a mystery concept. You can't come back after death, number one. But number two, reincarnation was also used to justify the caste system in India, which essentially is devilish. Class is very Jacobean in nature because it's dealing with separating people, putting people into different classes and levels, pitting them against each other, and basically controlling the entire population. It's divide and conquer. So Hinduism uses reincarnation to justify peoples who are oppressed, who are going through oppression. So if you're, let's say, at 85 or growing up in a Hindu family, you're gonna be like, I'm poor, but I deserve to be poor because in my past life I probably did something bad. So I'm not gonna do anything to fight the system. I'm gonna let it happen because I deserve it. So essentially, it's a religion that allows oppression. It's justifying oppression, which is why it's listed there. Now, I just want to add on, I know it's a little off topic, but the reincarnation concept, if you're living other than self, you're going to continually, it's a cycle. If you do the right thing, you're going to continue on. Reincarnation from this mystery interpretation is wrong, but from what I just said, if you continue on doing the wrong thing, you're going to keep going over and over again, being reborn. But if you finally do what's right and exact, you're going to move on to the next. That's the way I see reincarnation from how it's really supposed to be seen. What they say is trick knowledge. It's just lies.
That's P.E.A.C.E.
Crap. But now Christianity being 551 years old, at face value, doesn't really make sense because you have, Christians saying, well, Christianity started when Jesus was around, which is over 2,000 years ago now. Then you have Catholic and Greek Orthodox and the Ethiopian Orthodox, which are all Christian, and they contain some elements of original culture, right? You look at the Roman Catholic Church, they're dealing with a lot of Roman paganism, which is really stuff that came from Egypt and Northern Africa. So what's the 551 years really referring to is Protestant Christianity. These degrees, this exchange between the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Fard Muhammad happened between 1930 and 1934. If you subtract 551 years from the numbers I just gave you, it goes back to a time period when the Bible was being translated into English, specifically by John Wycliffe, who was seen as the foundation of the Protestant Reformation. He was seen as a pre-reformer, a pre-reformationist, before the Reformation happened. He was essentially a very foundational piece in the Protestant religion. Protestant Christianity, specifically in the United States of America and North America, was the Christianity used to enslave Black Africans who were taken there against their will, which is why it's listed there. So if you study their Bible, there's a lot of truth. Go to Psalms 82, ye are gods. There's tons of truth. They actually call out a lot of forms of oppression, slavery, classism. There's tons of truth in the Bible. But it was used to justify slavery. It was used to justify the enslavement of Black peoples, the genocide of brown peoples, and even the indentured servitude of lower class whites who were like Irish people. So Protestant Christianity was used to oppress a variety of peoples. And if you're a Black person and being taught this form of Christianity, you're going to be like, you know what? I belong in this place. This Bible, this religion tells me I belong here. So that's the reason why it's listed alongside, as other nations other than Islam. Because both of those religions, they have the truth, but they're also filled with trick knowledge. And they're used to justify the class system and slavery. If you look at the class system or the caste system in India, I think there is a connection between what the grafted were doing with what the brown seed or the half original was doing in India. I think that a lot of grafted people studied the caste system and implemented a lot of this stuff here in the New World. So
That's P.E.A.C.E.
Definitely peace.
Strong answer.
Definitely peace. Very profound answer. Wow.
peace. Thank you, God.
Last question. Why does Islam have no birth record? What does that mean?
Okay, well, Islam, can I just build on what Islam is? Like what I
Go through the whole thing you need to.
Okay.
There you go.
So Islam, right, to many people, is just one of the three Abrahamic faiths, which is true. But Islam really is our nature. It's who we truthfully are. It's our true way of life. Look at the word Islam. It's associated with two different meanings. Peace and submission, which are two completely different things. Now, to an Orthodox Muslim or to a Muslim in the Nation of Islam, they're going to tell you you get peace through the submission to the will of Allah. But if we are God, if we are Allah, we're the all, how can we submit to ourselves? Doesn't really make sense. So it really is in reference to submitting to our true nature. Those who are grafted are rebelling. They're rebelling against our true nature. They're rebelling. In order to gain peace, you have to end your rebellion and submit to the true way of life. And many of us who are original, who weren't in the grafting process, unfortunately, because of our association with devils or being oppressed by them, we've been acting out of ourselves. We're grafted in a way too. So the fact of the matter is that we have to submit to our true nature, which is Islam. Islam is just a terminology used to describe going away from the rebellion, ending the rebellion, living in a way that is right and exact, living in a way of our true nature. Therefore, we'll go back to who we really are, and we'll have peace. Peace is the absence of confusion. It's clarity. It's seeing things for what they are. It's being one with everything in the universe. It's being in tune with everything. No beginning or ending is just really referring to the fact that this is something that's always been. This is our true way of life. By not rebelling and submitting to who you truly are, you will gain peace. And then I know you didn't mention older than the sun, moon, and stars, but so sun, moon, and stars, these are celestial entities. It's essentially saying that this existed even before the celestial entities existed. So this is just our true nature. It's who we truthfully are deep down inside. It's the nature of Allah, which is everything, which is us. Peace.
That's definitely good.
Peace, God.
I like him.
Peace, God. You don't want me to build on any of the other stuff? I mean,
No, God, that's good. That's good.
I like him.
That's because I know your understanding. You built on it. This is stuff that I wanted to share, and I want you to share out there. I'm going to say this again. You all think it's sweet. You just memorize some stuff and you quote it, and then it's good. The God got up here and not only showed and proved what the degrees meant, but what they meant to him. See, everybody thinks they have it easy, right? I'm a black man. I look in the mirror, I'm a black man. Boom, the research is done. It says black man in a degree, and then that's me. Now, what about those who walk into society and they're not seen as black men? The God behind me sees me as a black man because he got knowledge of self. But not the average person out there might not. They're going to see a lot of soul. So they're going to say, this brother got something. But they're not going to call me that. They're not allowed to. That's not the way it works. He looks like a spick. So what I'm saying is, the God crown had to find out where he's from. Had to come to the decision to say, listen, this is an original reality. But it's not in the world that accepts that I'm original, and I'm going to find out why and deconstruct this history. I guarantee you that he said things in this build that you did not know about those areas of the world. And you say, well, it doesn't matter because that's not the areas of the world I'm from. Because you want to say you're God of the universe, though, but be God of a particular block, a particular area, and a particular way. Be God of the universe. Not the block. Not a Law and Justice Square. Not Marcus Garvey Park. The whole universe. So where he's from is part of this universe. Everybody is part of this universe. He showed and proved his reality. Went through the history. Went through his familiar history. I know these things. I've seen his family. I know. This is excellent. This is what I expect. Now, I don't have to read books. I'm not in school. I don't have to do these things. No. The scholarship and the work to be a scholar, to uncover the most important thing you could ever learn, the knowledge of yourself. Some idiot on this chat thinks it's sweet. Oh, articulate speech sounds good, blah, 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 but you didn't understand the half of it, and that's why it's recorded. You could press the damn rewind button and go back and see how stupid you are.
Pardon so good. Could I possibly build on the understanding of culture degree too?
Build, God.
Because
Build,
I
God.
just
You earned that. You want to add
I
on.
understand, like, so.
No, I know the research you did, Crown. I stopped you there. I'm gonna let you build, but I stopped you there because you've done enough to show you have an understanding of these degrees and that you're ready to move on.
I do want.
Many people have moved on with a lot less.
I do want to build on.
You know what I'm saying? But add on, God, the understand. Good, God, build.
Okay, so when we look at terminologies like nation, like from a modern sense, is a form of separation. Nation right now is a synonym for country or state. Countries and states are artificial. They're surrounded by fake boundaries. This is all trick knowledge. It separates and divides people. But nation, from an etymology standpoint, often refers to a person's birthplace or birthright. So where they're from. So the original nation is really talking about the entire planet, everything in existence. This is where we're from as a whole, Asiatic people. So original nation is really referring to not some place in Africa or Asia or Southern Europe or Latin America, but rather the entire planet. Now, the numbers that Elijah Muhammad was referencing really come from the 1930 census. So he was looking at the 1930 census to give these answers to Master Fard Muhammad. So when we look at the 2 million Indians listed, you look at the Native American population of the 1930 census, it doesn't even come close to 2 million. But if you add the Mexican population, the Japanese population, and the Chinese population, and the population of those who are labeled as other, who are really just original peoples that don't fit any of the categories, you get about 2 million. 2 million and 19,000, somewhere around that ballpark. But now the 17 million is, African Americans or Afro-Caribbean peoples that might immigrate here. So, looking at the census, the African American population or black population was only 11,800,000. So it's about 5 million and change shy of being 17 million. So where are the 5 million and change? Look at the white population, it's 108 million. Just to jump ahead into the culture degree real quick. Their population is listed as 103 million. Subtract the number in the census from the number in the degree, you get about 5 million and change. You add that 5 million and change to the 11 million and change, you get 17 million. So that means that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and Master Fard Muhammad had an understanding that there were a variety of original peoples being grouped up and listed as white for a strategic reason at the hands of those who are coming from Northern Europe. They include a variety of original people, not only to make their numbers seem larger, but to also appropriate original culture and claim, yeah, that stuff in Egypt, those pyramids, we built that, not black people. That's the reason why they claim North Africans and Middle Eastern people, despite the fact that they are overwhelmingly black and brown. Even the most light-skinned Egyptians look original. Now, this means that these 5 million peoples who were listed with the 17 million were coming from half original backgrounds, aka Italians, Greeks, some Ashkenazi Jews who had original ancestry still, maybe people who were labeled as gypsies, Iberians, people from Spain and Portugal, Latin Americans who were white passing, but also white passing African Americans, because there were a lot of African Americans who were white passing, and if they could pass as white to have an easier life, they would do so. So Elijah Muhammad and Fard Muhammad were very aware of the original people listed under the white population. And Fard Muhammad, being light-skinned himself, when he came into Ellis Island or wherever he came into in the immigration system, was most likely grouped up and labeled as a white person because of how he looked. He looked more Mediterranean. Now, the 4,400,000,000 is really referencing the entire population of the planet. It's basically saying that original people exist everywhere on the planet. Every continent, every country, every area, every corner of the world, there's original people. That's essentially what they're referring to. Now, the math that links with this degree is understanding. Understanding is the result of knowledge and wisdom. When you do the knowledge and then you apply it into your real life, you gain an understanding. Understanding is clarity, seeing things for what it is seeing beyond the physical. It's being able to take a subject and grasp it wholeheartedly. And it's beyond knowing. It's really seeing things mentally. The reason why this is the understanding degree is because it takes understanding to see that all these people across the planet are one and the same. We're one nation of people. With the 19 million altogether, you have Native American, Chinese, Japanese, half original peoples, Middle Eastern, North African, African American, white passing African Americans. These are people from all different corners of the world, but they're all being labeled as original people. So what it shows you is that you need understanding to see that all these people are one and the same, and we're divided and conquered by those who are grafted or other than stuff. They lied to us and told us, you're different from this person because your skin color is this color, and you come from this part of the world, and your eyes look this way, and your hair looks that way. They do this as a way to conquer us. So it takes understanding to see that we're one and the same. We're all the same people. The way I see myself in this degree is through the literal fact that I'm an understanding seed. I'm white passing. It takes understanding to see me as an original person, not only for people outside, but even myself. I had a father who had brown skin. My father has brown skin. A variety of people in my family have Afro-Asiatic Mediterranean features, but I'm pretty light-skinned. So I have to be able to really dig deep to see myself as a black man or an original man or one who has the original mind. And another way I see myself in this degree is, obviously my people were grouped in with, the 5 million who are part of the 17 million, but we were also grouped in with the white population in the census. And from a familial aspect, something I really like, this is a part of my family line and history. Back in the day, racial categorization also included complexion. A lot of people don't know that. My great-grandfather, who came from Campania in southern Italy, and his brother, my great-uncle, I found their World War II draft cards on Ancestry.com. On the back of the cards, their race is labeled as white, but their complexion is labeled as dark. So even though they're being grouped in as white, that's the scar that no. That's really them telling you, we know you people aren't really white, but we're going to claim you as us because we want that Roman type. We want that Greek stuff. We want that Moorish. We want to be able to say the Moors really weren't black people. That's the reason why they claimed us. So not only am I an understanding seed, but my family was directly usurped and pushed into this category, and we're in the degree. We're in that 5 million as a part of the 17 million. That's how I see myself in this degree, God.
That's peace.
Peace, God.
That's peace, God. That's powerful.
The culture degree is even crazier.
You may be found in this building all over the world.
How many people are doing that diligence, going through the lesson, and then looking up the census data, what Elijah would have seen? You know what I'm saying? That's what we were told to do that research and come to an understanding. An understanding that's been presented here that's very unique, and also what is most important with the degrees, relating it back to your real life. God, you're on to the next set.
Can I do the culture degree, though?
Do that culture degree.
It's
Build,
really
God,
important
build.
to me.
Build, yeah.
That's
The
peace, God.
culture degree is really important to me because it's so deep, man. It's so deep. So, population of whites in the culture degree is 103 million in the United States. So what that shows us is that we were outnumbered by them during the 1930s here in the United States of America. But worldwide, we outnumber them 11-1. 4.4 billion versus 400 million means that for every 11 original people, there's one grafted person. So we outnumber them. That's really like the essence of the degree. But going back to the 108 million, where 5 million of them are considered as original people, they grouped us and claimed us because they benefited from that. These people, they didn't claim the Italians. And I actually read this in a very good book called White on Arrival. It's essentially about Italian Americans in Chicago immigrating there. And, the guy who wrote the book, I don't know his name, but he has a PhD in this history specifically. He basically explains that no one really was white until they came to the United States. They don't even really call themselves white in Europe. I'm not saying that people in Europe aren't Caucasian or grafted, but I'm saying that it's really an American concept. But in the book at one point, he said, you know why they claimed Italians as white from the beginning, even though they were treated like shit, lynched, segregated, put into internment camps? Because they needed the Roman shit. Excuse me for cursing. They needed Rome. They needed Greece. Northern Europeans didn't have any claims to any civilization. And if they do, it's because of those original peoples they mixed in with, like the Western hunter-gatherers. But even they didn't really have a crazy civilization like Egypt or Sumeria or Rome or Greece. They didn't have that. They claim us because they wanted to be able to say, you know what, that Roman stuff, that was us Germanic people, not Black North Africans or Middle Eastern people or half original Mediterraneans coming together and creating something that was half original. They wanted to be able to claim our stuff, which is why they grouped us in with them. It's mass cultural appropriation. It's including while also oppressing to a lesser extent. So the fact of the matter is that, you know, they wanted to claim us. And it's the same thing. North African and Middle Eastern people are oppressed in America. But till this day, they're grouped in as white. And right now, they're fighting for their own title on the census because essentially they're invisible. They're invisible in the eyes of the United States government because they're grouped in with white people. And the same thing can be said about Mediterranean whites or Mediterranean half originals. But they claim that because they claim the Egyptian civilization. Then they can claim all the Abrahamic faiths, all the prophets. They can claim the Moors that civilized and brought civilization into Europe. They group us in as a way to claim us, which leads me to the mathematics. This is the culture degree. Culture is a way of life. If you live the true culture, you become free. If you live something in line with your true nature, you become free. Even in bondage, you realize I'm the answer to becoming free. I'm the answer to my own prayers. It's not a mystery God. By living out the true culture, you become free, which is why it's culture freedom. The reason why this is the culture degree is because these people lack culture and they need culture in order to become more like us. In order for those who are white to become more like us, they have to do the knowledge to who they once were, who they became, and they have to come amongst the original and do some homework, do some studying, really start living it out, becoming what they ought to be.
Hence the word culture.
Right, exactly. But now while they need our culture to become better than what they are, they've also used our culture against us. Because devilishment on its own, when they came out of the caves, they were zombie-like. Hair was falling out. They were living animalistically. Whatever original people they came in contact with, whether they were people in Central Asia or the Western hunter-gatherers in Europe who had brown skin, has been proven with Cheddar Man. They were not white people. They got mixed in with those populations, and they utilized the original culture, which made their devilishment more effective, because devilishment on its own is not effective. They have to mix it in with the original culture and do some things right to get a really, really, really damning result. Now, the way I see myself in this degree is through the simple fact that many of my people, although we are original, we have been living a culture other than self as well, right? It takes individuals like myself to be like, we got to stop doing this and go back to who we truly are as half original people, but really half original is original. So it's more than just like white people being like, oh, well, I got to do what's right now. I can't rebel anymore. For us, it's more like we're original. We've been original. We weren't in the grafting process. We got to really come back and do what's right. So the way I see myself in this degree is through that, but also through the fact that my culture was taken by these people and used against other original people. Because you have white nationalists and white supremacists who come out of their face like, oh, Rome and Greece. But the Romans didn't even like the Germanic tribe. They saw them as barbaric. They saw them as different than themselves. They described themselves as being brown-skinned people. And there were black and brown Roman emperors and soldiers and peoples of all different classes in Rome. So what it shows you is that they claimed our culture as a way to essentially divide and conquer, to make themselves appear more superior than the rest of us. I'm sorry I went off on a tangent.
No, that's peace. That's peace. P.E.A.C.E. low. What's the science? Yeah, I see whatever they said. I don't. Infinite Mind knows. Piece of the God, Infinite Mind. You know that I always want a scientific reasoning, people to present their ideas. But if it gets disrespectful without any kind of insights, I'm not having any of that shit either. God, you're on to the next set, the 1 in 36. So I give it to you, as soon as possible, and you build with the same vigor. But don't think you're going to get through 120 though without reading, without studying, without seeing how things go. And I don't want people that just see themselves in a degree easily. Original black man. I look in the mirror. I'm blatantly black everywhere I go. To just lay down and not do any research. You know what I'm saying? Crown had to do the research for the nuances and the details within all these original peoples that were immersed within the devil populations. We know that the devil only became of a significant population by grafting and by setting his seed into the original people. It's the only way he did it.
The half original was
His
a troll.
population was even less
Right.
than 11 to 1 before that, right?
So, the half original, I want to add on, God, the half original was always utilized by the grafted and used, while also being oppressed to a
Absolutely.
lesser extent.
Absolutely.
This is why, like I said, they claim certain things, but then they're lynching us in the South.
But
You know what
excellent,
I'm saying?
excellent work, Crown. Excellent work.
Peace, God. Thank you, God.
Let me go to something else, though. Mikey, is it right?
Yes,
Like,
sir.
yeah,
Where you from?
you traveling from, Mike?
From here, yes.
What's here?
Yeah, what's it?
The Bronx.
The Bronx, all right? Your lineage, your parents, your ethnicity. Let me know who you are.
Puerto Rican.
Okay, all right.
They're from Humacao.
Okay, okay.
That's about all I know, though.
All right, that's peace. You were born here.
Yes, sir.
How old are you?
I'm 21.
21. All right, 21. That's a lot. All right, so you live in Harlem.
Kind of. I'm in and out.
Okay, okay. You don't have to live in Harlem. You know what I'm saying? Mikey, what you walked into is the first school of the 5% Nation of God's Americans. This is the first school, law school in Mecca, right? What we teach is that there's no mystery God. There's no mysterious being, energy, or force that causes our reality. Instead, it is ourselves that we look to show and prove that. So we see ourselves as the true and living gods. We see the black woman as the true and living earth, bringing all life. But we don't leave it as a fact to embrace and leave as such. It is a constant quest to uncover this reality.
I represent the word earth. If you consider a woman earth, the whole earth, the only planet in existence is going to bring forth life.
That's right. That's right. So in getting this knowledge, it certainly has a history. This nation has a history. I'm going to give you a fast forward history. What I would like for you to do, and you're free to do anything, but what I'm sharing with you now, so you could say, I could walk past this building and I know what they teach in there. I definitely know what Sunez Allah teaches in his classroom. And I've made the decision to come back, or I've made the decision to never come back again, because this brother's crazy. Okay? You'll be equipped to make a decision. Okay? The reason you'll be equipped, though, is because everything I say will not be believed by you. You will take whatever you get, and you will go on your own to see if it's true. Okay? And if you see it for yourself, then you will continue to build. All right? And know that someone is always here to build, and I will always continue to be here every Thursday.
That's a lot.
Okay? Now, this nation has a history that goes back to the Nation of Islam. Have you heard of the Nation of Islam? To give a simple, very brief breakdown, so you know where you're at and how you got to this place and what it is. Okay? People go back in this history and they go back to the Nation of Islam, so we will do the same thing. Okay? We'll go through a little bit of their history, and in their history of what they teach, I will start at the points, and I will tell you at the points, though, where I say that it's corroborated. All right? Nation of Islam starts with a man named, according to what they teach, right? A man named Alfonso, right? He was out in the East, though, and he was in Mecca. And he had the truth of Allah. He had the truth of this history of the black man, the truth of the black man, but was not able to migrate to America and teach the truth of Islam. Whatever he saw Islam as, though, right? As he saw this, he realized that the only way he could migrate to America was through a lighter child, though. You know what I'm saying? Right? So he had to have a child that was kind of like Crown Energy B over here. Somebody that brothers would know, man, ain't really white, but could pass and everything. So he fathered some children with a white woman. This is what the Nation of Islam teaches, though. You're not going to find scholarly proof of this. You're not going to find records of note on any of this. This is what they teach. You'll see how it all links up to us. So Alfonso Muhammad, though, black seed, dark, has these children with this white woman, and one of them finally is a male that is worthy, and his name is Fard Muhammad. He becomes a polymath, a genius of many levels of science, arithmetic, math, speak many languages, write many. And he teaches them this thing that he wants them to share. That's truth of Islam and all that history of the original peoples. Fard Muhammad becomes old enough and migrates to America as a silk peddler. Comes to Detroit. While he's as a silk peddler, disguised as a silk peddler, he starts teaching select students. Fast forward to one of his students named Elijah Poole. Now this is where we can find these people. We can find the history of Elijah Poole. Elijah Poole, though, becomes one of his students, and Elijah Poole recognizes that, according to what they teach, right? He recognizes that Fard Muhammad is Allah himself. And this is unique to the other realizations of the other students. So he teaches Elijah Poole particularly. Elijah Poole has a third grade school education, son of a preacher. So all we could say is that he can't read, but he could talk real well and slick. Right? If we were to assume. He teaches him particularly for a set amount of years, according to what the Nation of Islam listens to. And he is taught to be the messenger of Allah, who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. That person, Elijah Poole, now becomes the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. You've heard of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
He's right here.
So I was looking for him. They keep moving him. Right? He used to be here for a while. Right? Elijah Muhammad, right? The Honorable Elijah Muhammad, he isn't so well received because of the other students being jealous, so he has to kind of move around and everything. So a great book on him by Andrew Clegg, An Original Man. That's the name of the book. Right? And I'm saying a book that is written not by the Nation of Islam. So you can see the corroboration of outsiders that also corroborate much of this. Right? Both are important in your scholarship. Elijah Muhammad eventually was given some type of knowledge, even if we can't prove that Fard Muhammad existed. Because he was able to found an entire nation, an institution, an organization, a religious organization, whatever it will be, you call it, the Nation of Islam. He becomes the messenger of Allah, who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. He eventually succeeds and sets up mosques, and these are embracing of segregation. You don't want us to integrate, then we will continue segregation amongst ourselves, and we will do it under the banner of Islam, and they won't need anything. These people in this nation will be Muslims. And he defined it, not as Orthodox Islamic sects define it, but as he defined it. A Muslim is one who submits to the will of Allah, who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad. The difference between what Elijah Muhammad was sharing was that Islam had a God, Allah, who could actually be seen by the physical eye. Something that does not exist in Orthodox Islam. Okay? They teach that in Orthodox Islam, Allah is something that is only described, if it is described with a masculine tone or a masculine reference, it's because it's the only way to describe it without limitations. You know what I'm saying? It's funny how religion keeps having limitations. It keeps coming up. As Elijah Muhammad is teaching, he teaches people that come into the nation, usually older people that want to learn about themselves, and they have to they have to write a letter, they have to get into Nation of Islam, and they get a letter. They get a letter to their surname. Their surname signifies the slave history that they have. So they're given an X. John X, if you were in there, Mikey X, right? There was one individual, right? His name is Clarence Smith. We are fast forwarding. People like Malcolm X become part of the Nation of Islam. All types of people, right? But one man named Clarence Smith becomes part of the Nation of Islam after he comes back from the Korean War, extremely well decorated. I fast forwarded from the foundations of the Nation of Islam all the way to the 19s, through the 1960s, through the 1950s. Clarence Smith comes back from the war, and the woman he married is part of the Nation of Islam. He's like, what is this? She goes, go check out a meeting. He likes what he sees. He becomes part of it because he's an extremely well-decorated soldier. Countless medals. I know this because I've seen them. Clarence Smith becomes part of the Fruit of Islam, the military training of men in the Nation of Islam. He gets the teachings as he goes along, right? And one of these teachings, he says, who is the original man? The original man is the Asiatic black man, the maker, the owner, the cream of the planet Earth, God of the universe. I messed that up? No, I did it. It didn't have father as we added up later. But he starts to look through this and he says, it says that the original man is God. Let me preface this saying, Micah, that this is nothing for you to believe. But I'm going through his logical rationale being here. He's in the Nation of Islam. It says the original man is the black man. He's like, I'm the black man. And the Asiatic black man, we understand they describing all of Pangea put together, right? Something that crown, right? I didn't say. All of Pangea put together, this all of the Asia as one. That's how they described it. And that the black man is God. So he's like, wait a minute, I'm a black man, so I'm original. And the original man is God. So I'm the true and living God. Not Fard, because Fard's not here. So it's really irrelevant. We're not going to wait for Fard. I'm not going to submit to the will of Allah who came in the person of Master Fard Muhammad when it says here in the teaching that I'm Allah. So eventually, Clarence Smith, who was known to drink, smoke, gamble, not the ideal Muslim in the Nation of Islam, leaves because of the teaching is in disaccord. He doesn't see it that way. He sees himself as God. Certain people leave with him. Okay? They agree with him. And they leave with him. One of those elders, Hashim, is still alive. You know what I mean? He says he's Allah now. He knows he's Allah. And he leaves the Nation of Islam and starts building in Harlem, the regular streets now, not bound by the mosque. He's not in the Nation of Islam. He's not Clarence 13X, the 13th Clarence to get it. Right? He's Allah. He starts to teach people, but the most receptive people are the youth. The first 9 youth that he teaches the most intensely that year he left from 1963 into 1964 are those young black men that he starts teaching. Men even younger than himself. Like those select men, those first 9 become the firstborn. Those firstborn teach more, those become first fruit, and those first fruit teach more. And all these years pass. And when Allah was killed in 1969, the teaching still survived because he taught every young black man that they are the true and living God, Allah themselves. He showed and proved it with taking the teachings that he saw fit and making them the 120 lessons from what he got from the mosque. 120 questions, answers, and statements. But he also devised supreme mathematics and alphabet himself. Something unique to show the reality of the way Allah, the true and living God, creates. During the time that he was alive, he was so powerful in his building and teaching that even he was given this building and this land by the mayor of New York City at that time, Mayor John Lindsay. Another fun fact, there's so many more, in the limited time that he was alive as Allah, from the end of 63 to 69, he was even able to, with the guards that were with him, was able to even stop the Martin Luther King riots that were beginning here in Harlem. And that's why when you look through your history books, there are no riots in Harlem after Martin Luther King's passing. This is how powerful he had. Okay? Fast forwarded to today, this is where we're at. This first school that he established here. Right? I come a lot later in the year 2000. And just like all of us can trace our tree back to the Father by looking at who taught who and who taught who, I trace it back to firstborns as well. Okay? I begin here in 2000, and you walked in here about 25 years after I started teaching it. Okay? That's a fast forward history. Like, if you have any questions about anything that I'm saying, please feel free to interrupt. I've said this many times. Okay? Now I'm going to say something else, right? There are 3 things that I tell everyone that walks into this classroom for the first time. And if you decide never to come back, though, I would like that these 3 things are still something that you realize that you still have to do anywhere to be effective. Okay? The first thing is this, something that I would implore you to do while you're in this classroom at this moment, is to always be having a criteria of who it is that is teaching you. A judgment of who and what is teaching you. That includes me, and that includes everything that you deal with. What do you remember? What do you see? What do you learn from? Right? What are the things that you want to learn? And out of all those things, what are the things that you learn horribly? And what do you learn greatly? And now you start to break down why these things happen. It is important, though, that we realize that we're always doing the knowledge. We're always absorbing something at all times. And there's always a certain reason why certain things are being remembered, why certain things are not. Why certain things are being absorbed, and why other things are not. When you start to do this exercise, you start to realize certain things that I don't want to teach me are teaching me, are impacting me, are influencing me. And you start to now be a judge of not only what it is that you just remember, but what you decide to learn. Okay? The second thing is this. Be a lifelong student of everything. To be a student, one has to be willing to be wrong about anything at any moment. That takes a certain humility that never ends. Okay? One of the great exercises to do this is to always be deciding what it is that you truly do know so that you can get closer to what you don't know. A lot of things that we think we know, we don't really know. So we want to make sure that before we make our next question, that we make sure it's based on stuff that we already do know before we make that next question. This is also an exercise to do endlessly. The third thing, possibly the most important, is to bathe yourself with belief. What that means is, doesn't matter what knowledge you get, you can see yourself as the true and living God, and nothing passes, nothing creates, nothing happens unless you see it and acknowledge it. And yet, at certain moments, you don't realize that you may be doing things completely and wholly based on belief and assumption, because knowledge is infinite, but we are thrust in this world to deal with it as it ever develops. So always be looking at yourself and say, what are the things that I'm doing that are necessary, certainly, but are based mainly on belief? For us, the gods, Mikey, we get knowledge, we start to look at the diet, right? Because out of all the things that we deal with, all the things that we love in the world, the only thing that we will put inside our body and expected to do things is food, your diet, the food and drink that you take in. So we start to look and we say, what has pork? We eliminate. Not just the pork, not just the salchichon, which is gross as hell, right? Not just the chuletas,
Pork byproducts.
the pork byproducts, the yellow number 5s, the dyes,
Right foot.
the glycerins that are not labeled vegetable, right?
So would you say alkaline diet is best or not?
Alkaline diet is fine, but it's not a complete term I would use. It doesn't encompass everything that I would say should be in a diet, all the things that you should be looking for, right? But we will go through that because I go through a heavy and intense holistic protocol, right? Of what I think is a proper diet and how you can catapult into it, right? But we begin by getting rid of the pork, seeing where it is, where it ought not to be. And this is a big deal, right? You're Boricua. There's a lot of pork going on, right? There's a lot of pork going on. And I guarantee you that many Puerto Ricans, when they see that you don't eat pork, though, they would consider you not being properly Puerto Rican.
All the time.
Some Puerto Ricans give me the argument that we ate wild boar, or we ate wild rodents, though, when we were Tainos, right? When we were Arawaks in there. And I say this, I don't give a damn. We don't do what we used to do. We do what is right and exact. We work to do what is right and exact. There are plenty of things that were being done incorrectly. There were plenty of things being done marvelously. We keep the best part, get rid of the worst part, and we continue to build on the poor part and build it up. That reasoning won't work on a lot of Boricuas, but it's the damn truth. So when I say bathe yourself in belief, we're always looking at ourselves to see what is it that we're spending so much time in that isn't necessarily based on knowledge. What is it that I'm doing that is necessary, but I really don't know enough of? We always start with diet when we get knowledge because it's a way to show the discipline. Can we learn to fast, though? Can we learn to deal without the food? Can we learn to let our body rest? Can we learn to eat the right food? You learn to fast. Then you also learn to fast at particular moments. This food right here isn't good enough. I will fast until I have a better meal. This food is good enough, certainly. But the time period that I have to eat it, though, is not sufficient to eat it calmly. Okay? That whole New York minute eating, it's no good. You know what I mean?
So what is New York minute eating though?
I'm just saying, like, you know, when you eat it as fast as you can. Fast as you can. Like, I only got a minute to eat this. You know what I mean? You know, you had to put the, you know, you always got to bring the Newark into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that whole speeding through everything, right? Then it would be no good, right? This is why when I talk about how to eat to live, I always talk about the diet isn't complete in how to eat to live. It doesn't give you a whole thing. But the nature of how you eat, calm, collected, careful. The same way the great Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh used to say, mindful, being mindful of everything, feeling everything, being aware of everything. You know what I mean? So these are the three things. So I gave you a short fast forward history of this school, how Allah started this school, the firstborn, how this is our lineage, how we go back to them. Okay? I gave you certain things that if you couldn't remember everything, hopefully you'd remember those things. As you leave, and if you decide to, I will give you my email. You can email me, and I will send you more things so you can continue to make your decisions, or at least have a lot of things to mull over. Okay? This classroom I teach here is one of a laboratory where you experiment with high explosives, your thoughts and ideas to see what is right and exactly what is wrong and incorrect to eliminate. It is to question, not to explain what is given to you, but to question what is shared with you to see if it is right and exact. Okay? To do this thing that we're saying that the original man is God is to understand that we're teaching that the black, brown, and yellow peoples are the original peoples throughout the globe. To teach that when we say that the white man was a made man and was made to be weak and wicked and cause this devilishment. But in the end, no, all the human families have to be taught. So now, when we start to get a knowledge of self, Mikey, is saying there is no mystery God. There is no point where Jesus will take the wheel. There is only more questions for me to work on. And I guarantee you, when you get into the habit of developing questions of what must be and can be, the answers of how it will be start to be addressed. The point of this is to never stop asking questions, not to end and say, I am content with all of these said answers. The scientist is measured by his questions, not by his answers. You see? He will continue to come up with answers. But if knowledge is infinite, then that means that we're always coming up with questions on how to build, how to analyze, how to grow, because we are ever growing endlessly, just as the knowledge is. So to be this original man is not just to see whether you are original black man and say, oh, I check off the I have African blood box, check. But to see how all of those parts interchange and that they are all original. Right? They tell us as Boricuas, African, Taino, Spaniard. But these are all original blood in all of them. The African, the Arawak, right? A migrating indigenous peoples that come from South America, but they are original too, because when we go all the way back, they were migrating from where? Africa itself. It's all the same blood. It's in the generations, the hundreds of generations that our original people stay in different places that build different phenotypes, but the genotype, the gene, is still original. As you learn later in the degrees, the original man is made of the black and the brown germ. Everything is in there. When you start to learn your history, then you start to see that even the Spaniard has roots in the Moors. Do you know the national instrument of Puerto Rico?
No.
What they claim? They declare it to be the cuatro, the 4-string guitar, right? Maybe it's a way to Europeanize themselves. It's a Spaniard instrument. But the cuatro is actually a Moorish instrument because all string theory comes from the Moors. There's a powerful essay in, what's it called? African presence in early India. Powerful essay in there. I forgot who wrote it. You know what I mean? So the piano, the harp, all guitars, all string instruments are rooted in the Moorish empires. Okay? Right? All of them. Right? So we start to do this research. We start to realize all of the roots that we have, the diversity of these roots, and then how it connects even further and further back to Egypt, what we know as Kemet, right? The original name of Egypt. Goes back to Nubia. All of these things are vital and of as crucial importance as each other. These are the things that you're going to learn because it's important to see the context of how you're here now, right? The context of the revolution, the context of the fighting as original people here, right? To learn little fun facts, right? Where was the Puerto Rican flag made? Like, you know where? Right? It was made here in New York. It was made at the cusp of the Spanish-American War ending. Revolutionaries realized that we don't know, but we have a great chance of getting our freedom from Spain. And to show that unity among Puerto Rico, Cuba, Dominican revolutionaries were in there as well. And he said, we got to make a flag. They inverted the colors of the Cuban flag so that they can have solidarity and recognize the solidarity that they have. And that was made in New York City. And that's how that came about. The original color is a light sky blue. The darker blue was when America colonized in Puerto Rico. they decided to change the color because it represented too much rebellion. Right? And this is after the gag law that they made, where they weren't allowed to carry the flag. So at certain moments under colonization from 1898 throughout, Puerto Ricans weren't allowed to hold the flag, and it was seen as a sign of rebellion. Most notably, in the Ponce University massacre. Ponce, the place where I'm from, right? I always like to do this, but where legends are from. Eddie Palmieri, Hector Lavoe,
That's right.
you know what I mean? Cheo Feliciano Sonora, toda de Sonora Ponceña, right? My favorite big band, right? And I'm just saying that. You know who's from Ponce too? Sunez is from Ponce, right? A lot of greats from there. But since Crown is here, a lot of Southern Italians were forced to migrate and embraced in Puerto Rico by the Spaniards to try to whiten the population. And that's why there's a lot of Italian last names in places like Ponce and other places. Thus, Eddie Palmieri, right? Thus, my own mentor that I still know to this day from college, that I still build with, Traverso, Galanza, right? So all this interaction, right?
During even Spanish colonialism,
Right.
like Columbus wasn't the only Italian explorer or the Italic explorer because Italy wasn't a country back then.
It was before Hitler.
There
That's
were
right.
a lot. There were a
That's
lot
right.
of America was named after Americo Vespucci,
Right.
who was Italian. So a lot of
Right.
Italian.
And this is
Spaniard,
how they were getting their
lot of
fame.
connections.
This is how they were getting the loot. This is how they were getting a new world, because those were the people that took the gamble to sail. You know, it wasn't just like taking a plane now or taking a bus ride. It was always a big, dangerous venture, especially for the European. You know what I mean? So knowing all these history, there's so much history of revolution, revolt, massive art. And don't let Lord Jamal tell you, that includes hip hop too. All right? That includes hip hop too. Right? And I know because I went to all these people. You know what I mean? So it's all this history to connect your immediate history to the history of all of this. Right? And how it all intersects. You know what I mean? Right? When the CIA stopped funding Rafael Trujillo's dictatorship of Dominican Republic, more of our brothers like Claudio started to come here. You know what I mean? Even though they put different dictators in there, like Balaguer. So it's important that we know all our histories and how we come here and what different levels of conditioning that we have, right? Flaws that we have in the history that's told to us, right? The way the one drop rule works in Latin America versus America. All of these things are important in learning of our histories and our realities. Right? So, Mikey, this knowledge itself includes learning supreme math, supreme alphabet, the 120 lessons, but it includes, most importantly, none of this matters unless you learn it through the lenses of yourself, because it's a knowledge of self, a knowledge of you, how you are the true and living, how you have control, and it is all your destiny to mold yourself. That is what is learned here. In this classroom setting, in this classroom, I expect people to learn this to their own desires. But that would also include exploring your realities, meaning the talents, and exploring all of the talents and unfolding all of the natural gifts that you have. Experimenting, as I said, with high explosives. If you never read like this, you're going to test your mind. If you never trained and worked hard like this, you're going to learn. But you're going to see your pursuits to the fullest degree. Okay? And it's a full curriculum. As Claudio will tell you, it even includes the martial arts if you're willing and able. Okay? There's a lot of things I teach. because this class is called the Peace Course, Political Education and Civilization Enrichment. Political education, how to deal with this outside world of devilishment and oppression that we deal with, and civilization enrichment, the science of everything in life. So a student is to come with his questions and all the work that he could muster. Okay? It comes with a curriculum for you to do. And when you come here without doing anything in the curriculum, the only person that fails is you. I never fail. And I'm not failing because I'm the teacher and the instructor here, but because everything that I will tell you to do, I have been doing. I tell you to write a journal, but I'm on my 75th one now. You see? And there were years where I didn't write in a journal. I focus on reading, writing, and communication skills, but I read a hell of a lot. I've been an author. I am an author. I'm a writer, an editor.
A rapper.
That sounds crazy. That sounds crazy. I can add that shit in there. But that's who MC. I love MC. You know what I mean? It should sound wild saying rapper. That's the best what you get. But also the communication skills. How are we going to build with the outside world? Which is really sorely lacking right now. We don't know how to build with everybody because we don't know what they've dealt with. You know? The Dominican doesn't know how the Puerto Rican grew up here and is probably, if you're 20, you may be 4th or 5th generation here in America. You know what I'm saying? I was already 3rd generation because my father was the 2nd generation here. You know what I mean? The Puerto Rican doesn't know how the Dominican is taught of and given a false sense of superiority over others, though, in their curriculum of dealing with the Haitians. You know what I mean? And solidifying that they are Spaniard versus the Haitians being African. Right? These are things to deconstruct, things to understand about our fellow peoples. You know what I mean? We don't know all this stuff. People think they know about Latin America, you know, but they don't know how the Latin America countries often praise the indigenous roots while they kill the indigenous people. You know what I mean? So these are all important things to know, the contradictions and hypocrisies that we all hold as we're working to get a knowledge of self. So it's up to you, and it's offered to you, Mikey, to take that responsibility to make a decision of what you would like to learn. That you're at this young age, that you have a world to explore, and it's time to explore it. This classroom comes with a lot of references, a lot of things to study, right? There will be a lot of books I give. I make you guys digital. So there's a lot of books I give out digitally and put you in a world where there's access to massive amounts of books. You want to learn about something? I got stuff for that. All right? So it's up to you to say that decision and say, listen, I think I see or want to see how man is God. Which, by the way, if it was true, it wouldn't be us that's the only ones saying it. And when we go through history, you'll find in literature, throughout the original peoples, go to the East, they have constantly said that man is God. Right? The largest documents being the best preserved, being in the Asian countries, Japan, China particularly, the Tao Te Ching, the Zen Buddhist, right? The Zen Buddhist, one of the grand patriarchs of Zen Buddhism once said, the mind is pure and only holds veils of sin. The Kabbalion that was written by Greek initiates that took down everything they could from Kemet, Egypt, where they were learning, wrote down that the number one, they wrote the 7 laws. And one of the first law said, the mind is the all and the all is the mind, and all is created by thought and can only be affected by thought. He meant the entire universe can only be created by thought and can only be affected by thought. That's what they learned.
It's the phrase manifest destiny.
So, exactly. So what we're saying is nothing new. If it was the truth, then that means it could be found. Modern philosophers, like one of my favorites, Jiddu Krishnamurti, they asked him, is man God? And he said he must be. You see? You look at the works of Robert Lanza, a scientist, a biologist, right now, alive. He wrote 3 books about what he called biocentrism. And he said that everything that you see shows and proves that we made everything. I'll leave it there. It's powerful stuff. Man, the more he studies, continues to find that he is the true and living God. You see? And the one who is not the true and living God is the one that was made to be devilish, made so weak that he cannot survive on his own. And yet, even that individual is still holy. Not holy, Jesus Christ, mystery God holy, but holy, responsible for his reality. Even the white man is responsible for his reality, and there is no mystery God that will save him. Damn sure ain't gonna be me. So when we start to look at this, it's to look at all of these documents and say, is it really up to me? Is it really all my doing? How is my mind connected? And we're going to go through all the sciences, the quantum mechanics, the study of the subatomic, the biology, the biochemistry. These are all the things in the classroom that we go through to show and prove that the original man is who he says he is, the true and living God. So that's it. That's it, Mikey. That's it. That's all I got. I got a whole lot more, but I leave it there for you to ask anything that you would like to ask about anything. What's in the purview expected here to ask is first, though, any question that you have about me, to inspect me, to value me, to check off the boxes of criteria you have, everything. Okay? All of this is crucial. And it's all possible. There are very few questions that people ask me that I don't answer. And let me tell you something. People ask me some crazy questions. They ask me some very personal questions. And I answer nearly everything. Because it's all relevant. Well, at least I try to find the relevance of it. Claudio, how are you? You have been silent. Any questions you have since we last built? You know what I mean? How are you doing in your martial arts?
Yeah.
Practicing?
Yeah, I try to slow the video down. It's kind of hard because it's blurry on YouTube. But
Which video? Oh, you talking about?
you know,
I know I sent you Itman doing Silam Tao. Yeah. You know what? Let me see, because there's another video. I may have sent you the old one.
yeah,
There was
like,
one on YouTube where they remastered it. So let me look for that one, because I'm pretty sure that they remastered
I
it.
found one other guy. He's some other dude. I don't even know. He wears like glasses too. He does it just like him. He got a compilation of it.
Okay.
And
Okay.
Then, like I said, my horse stance getting stronger.
Nice piece. Excellent work. All right.
All since karate or judo?
Oh no. Kung Fu.
Kung Fu and
I heard the reference using judo and kung fu.
Right.
So my different.
Horse stance, right? Yeah. The horse stance is very universal.
Yeah, it's
Universal
in
training.
like almost every martial art.
Yeah, I was reading a book about I think it's about the breath. It was saying that sometimes, so we breathe in through the nose, and then that's where it has the filter to turn into oxygen. And then they said that sometimes people tend to not breathe out through their mouth, through looks, and that it cause problems. So it's better to breathe in through the nose and then out through the mouth is better. then out through the nose, or it don't matter.
It's always best to breathe in through the nose. It is not as mandatory to breathe out through the nose as it is to breathe in through the nose. But ideally, though, you want to do both. You know what I mean? You want to do both. When you're training, obviously, if you're training hard, though, you're going to get some breathing in through the mouth. You know what I'm saying? So it's not an end all be all. There's only one way. But you almost want to make your daily life. Like, you don't want to catch yourself just walking regularly and be like, you know what I mean? So it's a process of using the entire lung, right? And see, it's all about mindset, right, Mikey? People think organs are just what you have. But in Chinese Kung Fu, the lung is used as a muscle. And you control your muscle. So now we fill up the lung like a cup from the bottom to the top completely. You know what I'm saying? And you learn how to build up so strong, breathing in through the nose, that you're able to convert more of that air, oxygen, into and exhale it as carbon dioxide. This makes you healthier.
To my knowledge,
This makes you stronger.
the nose, the filtration system, your mouth is the exhaust.
Yeah. Thank you. The book that I was talking about with the great essay near the end about string theory and the Moors is a book called The Golden Age of the Moor. That was the name of it. That was the name of it. Thank you, Infinite Mind. You know what I mean? I've forgotten the name of the book. These are books that are hard to get. I don't know if they're I have very large PDFs of them. You know what I mean? But they're impeccable books. You know what I'm saying? The work of Ivan Van Sertima is priceless. It's priceless work. You know what I mean? All right. We are past 9:00. We're 9:20 though. Divine. Let's see. You said where I descend beings. All of that is division. You know what I'm saying? All of that is division, divine. Yeah. You know. That's peace. I'm just looking here in the chat to see if there's any. I don't know what foolery. I just see that FBA is a new Afro Karen. So, yo, that's crazy.
So if you need help with the ceiling towel, I have a down pat if you want me to do it so I can show you anything you might be confused with.
The whole thing?
I can do the whole thing.
Yeah, let's see it. That'll give me a moment. So I'm gonna say peace to everybody here. I don't know what Fabrica is trying to say here though, but I'm here every Thursday, so you could come through and say that to me. Everything else has been real peace. I'm very honored that everybody built here, and I will see everybody next week. Malik, I see you, God, and we will build. So until next week, peace.
Peace.